We once again step into the survival horror with a game that I honestly will not shut up about. I'm of course talking about Resident Evil 2 Remake. You probably figured that one out when you clicked on the video, you know? I hope. If any of you keep up with me, whether on social media or on my Twitch, you probably know I sweat this series a bunch and have talked about this game whenever given the opportunity, and for good reason. This game absolutely blew me away when it came out in 2019, and of course I was interested in writing a video on it, talking about some of my favorite parts as well as give some pros and cons I felt of playing through it. Thinking on it now, it probably would have been wise to maybe cover this game before going straight into talking about Resident Evil 3 Remake beforehand, but oh well. I was clearly very thirsty that Jill and Carlos were back, because I mean, hey, they both be beautiful. My thirst for these characters aside, I want to start off this video detailing some of my initial thoughts on when RE2R was first being announced, as well as just give some general information. When Resident Evil 2 was confirmed being a remake, I expected it to be in the vein of the remake we got for Resident Evil 1. Everything being made from the ground up and made pretty, tank controls making a comeback and some additional content and story elements. What we got was something that completely exceeded my expectations when they finally showcased that first trailer. We got a third-person, over-the-shoulder camera with old-school zombies making a return and looking horrific as ever, with realistic damage being visible on each walking corpse that you shoot. The environments in the RPD and the streets of Raccoon City look stunning in the RE engine. I was amazed by what they pulled off with this game's presentation. To say I was excited for this game was putting it mildly. This game looked like a true return to roots of the series, but with a modern twist to it. Now, we got a taste of that with RE7, and I was excited with Capcom going more in this direction for the series than with some recent titles like RE6. Side note, this isn't me trying to diss RE6 fans. If it came across that way, my bad. I just personally wasn't a major fan of the game outside of Leon's scenario and a few of Ada's chapters. But I really like. Don't listen to me and my horrible opinions. I'm awful. Back to it. I was very excited to see more of this game after that first trailer drop, which we didn't have to wait too long since we got to see live gameplay shortly after. Seeing the halls of the RPD showcasing an incredible amount of detail of this building being in shambles after the viral outbreak was incredible. It looked really realistic with all the clutter all over the place and item placements, really making this place feel like a place people worked at. Also seeing if there was a sudden struggle that occurred with all the damage visible throughout the building. Oh yeah, there's also bathrooms now, so that's a bonus if you didn't know. Yeah, for some reason, the original game, the developers forgot to put in bathrooms in the RPD. You know, so good news, they finally got around to fixing this mistake 20 years later. You're killing it, Capcom. Now, outside of just how great this game looks, let's talk about the characters we get to play as. In this game, we get to take control of series favorites Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield. Both characters arriving to Raccoon City at the same time, with Leon starting his first day as a police officer, and Claire, a college student, coming to town to search for her missing brother, Chris Redfield. The characters meet up at a gas station and immediately decide to work together to escape this nightmare of a situation once they realize something is very wrong in Raccoon City. Yeah, I'm just not sure what could be wrong here. You know, just a horde of spookies just coming towards you. I don't know, it just seems like a normal day, you know. Typical day in Raccoon City, nothing to see here. Random side note, the scene kind of confuses me. I always thought that what if Leon and Claire just drove out of the city and got to safety? They could have actually just avoided the entire outbreak, but chose to drive into the city assuming it was safer to get to the police station. I guess the plot said no, that wasn't an option discussed for the two. Oh well. Shortly after, our characters get separated during a car accident and start their separate scenarios. This brings us to talk about this game's scenarios. Resident Evil 2 features an A-B scenario between characters where certain events will differ depending if you're playing Leon A followed by Claire B, and vice versa with Claire A followed by Leon B. A nice way to mix things up a little and bring some replay value to the game. While I don't think this was nearly as integrated in this remake as it was in the original, I am happy to see Capcom didn't forget about it and managed to bring some differences to keep things fresh between the scenarios. Outside of the A-B scenarios, Leon and Claire get their own stories and exclusive weapons, Leon getting weapons such as the shotgun and magnum, and Claire getting the grenade launcher and machine gun. Oh, also the grenade launcher is definitely my personal favorite of these weapons. It's pretty good. I give it an official rating of, yeah, pretty good. Now, before I go any further, I'm about to go much heavier on the scenarios for our characters. This is where major spoilers are now going to be talked about. If you have not played this game yet and still want to experience it for yourself, it may be time to close the video and come back later. I don't mind. I definitely would like people to experience this game for the first time without being given away too many key things about it. Can always come back later, I promise. With that out of the way, let's go more in depth and give my thoughts on Resident Evil 2 Remake. Deciding how to structure this video is a bit of a pain since this game has so many things going on with its scenarios and how it differs depending on your character order. In the A-B scenarios, we will have some similarities in things that we are doing, but things will differ based on what key items you receive and exclusive areas that only Leon or Claire get to explore during their adventure. Starting off after getting separated, we have a mad dash to the RPD. This section was such a highlight for me to see the streets of Raccoon City in all its glory. Dashing past the undead and rushing to safety. I do wish this section was a little longer than the original game. It felt very sped up this time around, this section only lasting maybe a couple minutes. Upon arriving, we explore the Raccoon City Police Department searching for any survivors, as well as trying to find a way out ourselves. The building looks to be deserted until we eventually hear an officer named Elliot screaming for help. Unfortunately, by the time we get to him, Elliot gets eaten by the undead in a way which Capcom really wanted to drive home with the scares and scar us all, because this scene was hella brutal. Noble day at the office here, nothing to see here, go back to work fam, it's all good. When searching his person, we do find a notepad detailing that Elliot found a way to get out of the RPD through a secret passageway in the main hall. This brings us to one of the main key collectibles in this section, being the Three Medallions. We must find 3 that fit into the slots in the main hall to open the secret passageway and make our escape out of the main hall, all the while avoiding the undead and nightmarish creatures lurking in the shadows all over the station. Good luck, champ. You got this. Shortly after we get jumped by some zombies and must make our escape back to the main hall, we eventually get saved by Marvin, an officer trying to survive. Marvin gives us a knife in order to progress to other rooms in the station because apparently no one in RE can, take off tape by hand anymore. Yet we have Chris, just punching boulders. I don't understand it either, but the plot demands it, and we are powerless to do anything about it. Exploring the halls of this building is just an absolute fan service for me, going through and seeing how different the areas are to the original, seeing so many signs of the struggles with damage all over the building and barricades being put up to keep the undead out. It tells you a story of such hardship before Leon and Claire's arrival. This is where I would like to talk about this game's sound design. While there are not many tracks in this game unless you turn on the original ST, this game has excellent sound design, really putting the player in the environment you are in. We find ourselves exploring and solving a few simple puzzles, all the while attempting to survive from the undead. Eventually, we locate all 3 medallions that open the passageway to escape the main hall to find a secret office? Why is this here, you might ask? My answer is, I don't know. We take the elevator in that office and head towards the parking garage when something happens. If you do not know who this is William Birkin, the man that created the G-Virus. After suffering wounds at the hands of Umbrella's security service trying to steal his research, Birkin decided YOLO and injected himself with the said virus in the hopes that it would keep him alive. This did kind of happen, but just not the way he probably had hoped. This fight was a highlight for me. I think this game did Birkin really well, seeing him still partially resemble a man and even still uttering some words during the fight, showing he is still slightly there even after injecting himself. After finished playing Get Chased by Birkin and watching himself yeet off the stage, we begin to make our way towards the parking garage. This is where there are some differences happening with Leon and Claire. Each character will be meeting different people and having their own unique arcs. Why I can't stress enough to experience both scenarios to get the full experience in this game, because there are things happening. Leon meets a mysterious woman claiming to be FBI after he is attacked by some zombified doggos. I love what they did with Ada in this game. Oh yeah, her name's Ada if I didn't mention. I know some people didn't like this direction taken with her character, and that she wasn't wearing her signature outfit, but I think for the serious tone of this game, it made sense to alter her a bit to fit this setting. The good news is, we still do get to see her in the original outfit as time went on though, so I guess all is well? Shortly after our little chat with Ada, we go looking for a man named Ben, who quickly lets us in on more of what is happening in Raccoon City. Ben tries to get Leon to work together to survive by helping him out of his cell in exchange for a keycard to the parking garage doors. But Leon, being too pure for this world, wants permission from Chief Irons and dragged it out so long that Ben gets attacked and killed in what I thought was a gruesome introduction to Mr. X. Honestly, I love that the game teases him like this. First time I played through, after this scene, I was so spooked wandering around assuming Mr. X was going to appear on the next quarter. My anxiety levels were off the charts. Claire is now accompanied by Sherry after the Birkin fight and runs into Chief Irons, who turns out to be in Umbrella's pockets and kidnaps Sherry, assuming she has what he needs and for some reason leaves Claire alive when he so clearly had the chance to take her out. Guess Claire has the power of plot armor on her side? Must be nice, we stan. Our goal now is to nab a keycard in order for us to open the garage door. To do that, we will need 2 electronic parts that are scattered around the RPD to gain access to the rooms the keycards are locked in. We must make our way through the parking garage and a few more rooms to gain access to other parts of the police station, with some new key items we find along the way. As time goes on, we find a crashed helicopter on fire. Perfect! Playing fireman and making the flames moist, we press on to one of my most spooked moments playing this game.
Jesus Christ!
I'm going to be quite honest. When I first played this scene got me a lot. Mr. X was so intimidating and seeing him appear so suddenly brought a lot of spooks. I remember playing this on stream and getting so anxious that I almost had to call stream early from being so spooked. It had been a long time since the game had done that to me. I think the last time for me was the Outlast Whistleblower DLC, which, if you have not played it, can definitely recommend it. Now this is probably the most intense part of the game. Mr. X is constantly hunting you down during your search for the parts. This section is perhaps my most favorite for this game, because of just how anxiety-inducing it is. Since this game doesn't have zombies respawn too often, if you play it right and use your bullets cautiously, you can plan ahead and clear some rooms up to make it safer to travel through while running from Mr. X. If you don't, then you'll have to deal with both the infected and monsters on top of Mr. X, making for a challenging experience. After a few puzzles and locking a few doors later, we finally find all the parts that we need to open the cell Ben was locked in. Leon obtains the keycard, and then we get treated to despair and anxiety with all the other cells being opened, unleashing all the zombies to roam free in the area. This part can be tricky to avoid getting grabbed. To make matters worse, if you try to go an alternate route to avoid the infected, you will run into Mr. X. He just does not know how to take a hint. My recommendation is to have a flash grenade or two. Really makes this section a breeze. Leon escapes the cell block and gets attacked yet again by Mr. X, who believes in making his own doors. Ada comes in and tells Mr. X to take the hint before driving a truck at him and blowing it all up. All while looking perfect with such grace. The fandom goes wild. Meanwhile, Claire gets a respected keycard and gets a naughty prank call from Irons, who continues to be a dick. At this point, Claire Snow gets to switch roles and play as Sherry for a hot minute, which definitely brings the spooks. As Sherry, you cannot really do much besides hide and solve a few puzzles with the objective to escape from Irons. As time goes on, you get caught by Irons and must flee and hide. This brought back memories for me of trying to avoid Jack Baker in RE7. It really brought a ton of spooks and anxiety, putting you in the shoes of a child having to flee from a hostile adult. Switching back to Claire, she must make her way to the orphanage to rescue Sherry and give naughty Irons the pendant as ransom while avoiding some spooky doggos that just want some pets. Claire makes her way to the orphanage to find the chains locking the door shut to be ripped off. Guess Birkin came through the front door because it was locked earlier when Sherry tried to escape. We run into Irons, who suddenly has a stomachache and decides to take a nap. But before that, all before scaring the player even more. Thank you, Irons. Making our way underground, we find Sherry, who somehow is perfectly fine. I don't fully understand what happened here. Last time we saw Sherry, Birkin was putting a parasite into Irons, and I would assume would attack Sherry right after. Did Sherry find a way to escape? And where did Birkin go? He came through the entrance and left through the only other exit in the building. I am in confusion, but okay. After a rickety elevator ride and Birkin killing Mr. X, we get separated from Sherry again. This brings up a bit of an issue I have with this game. So Mr. X gets killed in Claire's scenario. At this point in the timeline, this would be around the mid-game point. If this was the Claire A scenario, theoretically, Mr. X should be gone and not show up in Leon's scenario after this point. But this time around, Capcom just forgets that and has him still show up. This is why I'm not nearly a fan of the AB scenarios of this game compared to the original. They don't really make a difference outside of different item and enemy spawns and starting at a different location. Anyways, let's take a step back and go back to Leon. Leon and Ada decide to finally ghost Mr. X and make their way out of the RPD, searching for a way to get out of the area. Upon going through a familiar looking gun store, we meet Kendo, a character from the original RE2 that got out of a revamped story that made me feel. This time around, Kendo seems to be surviving compared to his original fate in RE2. After some feels, Leon and Ada leave him to be with his daughter. Ada starts to let Leon in on who is responsible for the viral outbreak and tells him more on the plan. With Leon wanting to play hero, he decides to continue helping Ada because he is indeed best Boy Scout. Oh yeah, at some point Leon takes a little dip and we play another game of chase, just this time with a giant alligator, which leads to one of my favorite lines for him.
Holy shit!
I don't know why, just the way the voice actor delivered this one amuses me. So, this was cool to see the alligator making a return. I assumed this one would get cut, but hey, they brought it back in a nice quick section. I'll be honest and say the camera here got annoying for me on my first run, and I was awful at avoiding this alligator. I believe I actually died around 15 times. Yeah, it was a hot mess. After a few cool kid dodges, we slide down and the alligator bites on a flammable pipe that was so conveniently placed because the plot demanded it. Leon gives it a boop and the alligator is now half past dead. With the alligator being taken care of, Ada comes out of nowhere and lowers a ladder for Leon to escape. The two have a fun chat about viruses and the fate of the world. You know, things you always talk about on a first date. Up until we run into a new character.
Definitely William's handiwork.
Identify yourself.
Annette Birkin.
Annette Birkin makes an appearance, is not willing to accept anyone stealing her research. An attempt to save Ada, who rushed in pretty blindly in my opinion. Leon gets shot by Annette. Ada patches him up a little and merely decides to ghost Leon because she realized she wants that G more than she wants that D. This is where we get Ada's section, which is alright. We get a fancy tool where we can hack some stuff in the environment and really feel like a spy. Just the device does not seem realistic with the overall tone this game seems to be going for, in my opinion. Anyways, we get to play a few rounds of Hack the Thing until Mr. X shows up and we play Hack the Thing again, just with a lot more anxiety on the table. Are you having fun yet? Because I sure am. After ghosting Mr. X in style, Ada must find a keycard that is in a room that definitely doesn't look like a trap. Oh wait, it was totally a trap, my bad. Annette traps Ada with the intent of having her be burned alive. This section is also alright. All you have to do to escape is utilize Ada's hacking device to break the locks off the door. First time in, it can look pretty scary with the spooky timer hanging over there, but this isn't too hard. With the keycard, Ada escapes and goes after Annette again, with the ability to progress to some other rooms. She runs into yet another trap by Annette, where she drops a platform to ram her off into the low levels of the sewer. Honestly, this scene kinda annoyed me with Ada a little bit, because throughout the scene, you see the platform being lowered and Ada just tries to stand firm and look good until Annette finally just yeets her off the platform. Ada falls and gets a few boo-boos and decides to take a nap, and that is when we switch back to everyone's favorite Boy Scout, Leon S. Kennedy. Leon and Claire wake up and slowly find that Ada and Sherry in their respective scenarios are trapped and must collect some key items to gain access to the low levels of the sewer. The items you'll be collecting in this section are the chest-themed plugs. The area we get to explore is the new revamped version of the sewers, which I honestly really enjoyed. The original sewers in RE298 were alright. It was a very small area. This remake version we have a little more to do and find. We do also get treated to a new enemy with the G-Adults, which take a lot more bullets to take down, and if grabbed will poison you. Getting poison works different to other games. Normally you would just take gradual damage to still be able to move mostly the same, but in the remake, the same happens with the added inconvenience that your character may suddenly start coughing and be unable to shoot or run. This can be so bad if in an unideal situation. Best get stocked up on some blue herbs or you're gonna have a bad time. One thing I like with the sewers as well is that you are also given the ability to backtrack all the way back to the RPG if you forgot something via a hidden elevator. You just need to find a specific key to gain access to that room. Say you missed the extra gun in the STARS office or some herbs lying around the corner somewhere. I like that they give the player this option. We like options in this house. Also, side note, this area scares me and still does after almost 20 playthroughs of this game. I do not like the G-Adults, they scary. Fast forward ahead, and we now have all the chest plugs needed to progress. After doing a simple puzzle, we have another run-in with Birkin, who is demanding Senpai Leon and Claire notice him. After a few moments of dodging and running for dear life, we have a new boss battle with Birkin on a platform where we must use a container to ram Birkin off. This fight, it's pretty straightforward. I don't mind it much, just that the stage is a little small and Birkin has some big swinging attacks. This fight is all about timing. Really, if you get Birkin down with enough damage, you should have more than enough time to get the container to ram into him before he gets back up. Do this a couple times and you're good to go. Have fun with it. After we eat Birkin off the platform, we go find Ada or Sherry and make our way to the cable car now they have access to Nest. Now be advised, this is a point of no return sort of deal here. Once you go, you are not able to backtrack to any areas prior. Be sure you have collected all the items you think you'll need. Also, fun thing to note, Leon and Claire have not met up at any of these points outside of the short meetup at the RPD earlier, even though the timeline would have them in the same locations roughly around the exact same time, but oh well. Leon's goal is to now secure the sample from the lab, while Claire's goal is to find the cure for the virus to help Sherry. This section's pretty cool. I think they did the lab right in this game compared to the original. The original looked very old and abandoned for a long period of time, but this remake version looks so clean and like a real area people were working in recently. In this section, we must proceed to find the sample of the virus. To do that, we must collect more ID wristbands with higher clearance to gain access to other sections of the lab. As time goes on, we run into a new type of enemy, the Ivy Zombies. These guys can be brutal if you are not well prepared. If grabbed and you do not have a defensive item, it will be an instant kill. Have fun. I'm not the biggest fan of instant kill enemies, so these guys aren't exactly my favorite in the bunch, but there is some good news. They do have some small glowing spots that if you boop, will stun the Ivy, giving you some time to dart past to safety. After some more horrific moments of terror and some simple puzzles, we make our way to collect the sample, and Birkin, not able to get enough of Senpai Leon and Claire, yeets into the room, demanding some boops. Now, this is a pretty awesome boss battle. Birkin has a few more tricks up his ripped sleeves, and he is now having more eyes and can throw things at you. Definitely a highlight fight in my book that I don't have much else to say. It's fun. If you're prepared and stocked up on ammo, you're gonna have fun. If not, good luck, fam. After a few boops, Birkin takes a nap and we progress. Now this is the part on the timeline that confuses me, cause so much happens here between scenarios. Claire would make her way to an infected Sherry that Annette just cured with the sample. We witness a heartfelt scene with Annette that made me feel, which is all fine, but in Leon's scenario, Annette dies after shooting Ada shortly after Leon fights against Birkin. The timeline's a little bit of a mess with these scenarios. I just go with it because it doesn't make much sense. I do really think that they did a nut good in this remake, especially with their screen time and Claire's scenario being a highlight. Now, no reason to stick around, we must make our way out of the facility with a good-looking timer just ticking away. Do you feel that? It's my anxiety. Claire finds herself in a large turntable with a train car in the center. Attempting to get the turntable running, we find a conveniently placed minigun. Why is it here, you may ask? I actually haven't a clue, but it sure is cool and definitely not a sign that a boss is to come. Oh, never mind. Birkin is back once again in an epic final boss. Claire must race against the clock and defeat Birkin before Nest explodes. No pressure. The goal is to destroy the eyes coming out of Birkin's chest, and with the minigun, it shouldn't be too hard. Once you pop those naughty eyes, Claire and Sherry can finally make their escape on the train. Meanwhile with Leon, Ada was nice enough to hack the main shaft platform before definitely falling to her death, right? Right. Eventually Leon makes his way to the lift room. Using the joint plug we begin to descend to the exit, all before having one last run-in with Mr. X, who's clearly been lifting. So one big highlight I have with this section is the music. It is so impactful and really hypes me up. This is my favorite fight in the game by far. Mr. X now has a flaming claw and can do huge sweeping attacks that hit hard. Good luck. The one thing I cannot say I'm a fan of is that he does have an instant kill move. Mr. X will signal if he is about to do this attack with a loud roar. What you can do to stop this attack is to stagger him, preferably with the Magnum, but you can also use the debris that has fallen onto the platform somewhat as a shield from this attack. After a few boops later, mysterious person, who we will name not Ada, tosses you down a rocket launcher. It feels just like Christmas. Once Leon gets the rocket launcher, we can now finish X off for good. Such a great boss battle. Conveniently, the lift reaches the bottom shortly after, and Leon makes a mad dash for the exit, catching up with Claire and Sherry. Now, varying if you're playing the A or B scenario, the scenario may not be over yet. If on the B scenario, you'll find the scenario continuing with the train beginning to shake violently. Leon or Claire will investigate depending on whose B scenario it is. As we make our way to the final car, we find Birkin in the final stage of the G-Virus, making its way towards you. My recommendation, you might ask? Boop the giant eye with everything. Just hit it a bunch and you'll be good to go, getting the car unlinked and heading towards safety. Ending this horrific nightmare for our characters as they go off into the distance, escaping Raccoon City. Now with the credits rolling, I can say that I know this game wasn't a head-to-head remake. There was a lot altered just with this game's presentation. In some cases, I would call this game a reimagining, just like I did with the Resident Evil 3 remake. Would I say this is better than the original RE2? I don't know. Both bring such good times to the table. I do think the original RE2 did some things better, namely with the AB scenarios. Both bring a bunch with its replay value and having grades being given based on how fast you beat the game. Part of this game, I never really been that crazy about speedrunning, but this game is just so satisfying to speedrun, or I call it Diet Coke speedrunning in my case. I'm not the best, but I try. Outside the main story, we also get unlocked the 4th survivor. If you're feeling crazy, this is a mode we get to play as the lovely Mr. Death himself, as he makes his escape from Raccoon City, having to rush through the sewers and blitz through the RPG, where he has to deal with a good chunk of the enemies you see in the main game. Upon beating this, you can unlock Tofu survivor mode, where you get to play as... Let's see, let me just check my notes here. A piece of tofu. Cool. Now some context to this. The tofu was used as a test model for Capcom to use for RE2's collision detection, but was left in and brought back for the remake. The scenario is the same as Hunks, except with a revised loadout, making this a more challenging version. There are 3 other versions to lock after this, so if you're looking for a challenge and pain, yo my dude, this is all for you. I like extra modes like this, so yes, please, thank you Capcom. There's one thing I do need to bring up. We did get additional content in this game after its initial release in the form of the Ghost Survivors. While more content is a great thing, initially I was under the impression that these were going to be canon short scenarios, and I still wish we could have gotten a canon scenario for these characters. The thought of experiencing more perspectives in Raccoon City with known side characters, minus the Forgotten Soldier being new, sounded very appealing to me. The Ghost Survivors DLC is a time trial mode where each character must get to a specific destination while surviving against the undead and horrific creatures lurking in the shadows. Don't get me wrong, this mode is still a good time. I'm just thinking more of a, what if we did get something canon? And that's exactly what this DLC is. What if scenarios. When you beat all 3 scenarios, you also unlock a special 4th Ghost Survivor where you get to take on a wave of 100 zombies inside that gas station you started in the beginning of the game. This game honestly just keeps on giving. Now with that, I think I just about exhausted what I want to talk about with Resident Evil 2. This game is one of my favorites to come out in a long time, and I look forward to playing it many more times in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed this lovely video. I really had a lot of fun putting this all together. Did this resonate with you? Please be sure to leave a comment and we can possibly talk about stuff. Please be sure to also subscribe to my channel to keep up with whatever I end up posting on here. I post stuff. If you are also interested, I will be leaving a link to my Twitch page down below. I stream a few times a week if you would like to support me, or, just come say hi. There you go. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I hope you all have a lovely day. With that, bye now. I meant to make this video, like, a long time ago. Like, I meant to make this as a follow-up after the Resident Evil 3 remake video. Yeah. Took me a minute, but hey, it's finally up. I finally did it. Yeah, again, thank you guys for staying till the end. I really appreciate it if you did. Alright, peace.